In Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, the author uses a literary device to symbolize the physical weight of the items the soldiers carry on their war experience. The focus of this podcast will be how Tim O'Brien uses various forms of syntax to represent the weight of the things they carried in the first chapter, The Things They Carried. I'm Kelly Ripa from Regis and Kelly, hosting a special guest segment today. Today I'm going to be discussing the first chapter of the New York Times Book of the Century, The Things They Carried, written by Vietnam vet Tim O'Brien. Welcome, Tim. Great to have you here.
Well, thanks, Kelly. It's great to be here.
So, Tim, let's get down to it. I've noticed that the weight of the things they carried is represented many ways throughout this chapter, one of which is with syntax. The syntax consists of lengthy sentences followed by short, abrupt sentences, polysyndeton and anaphora.
Yeah, that was on purpose.
Something interesting you do in this chapter is how you follow up a long paragraph that has detailed sentences with a short factual sentence. Do you do this to interest the reader or to make the following paragraph much more impactful?
Yeah, I think I did it to make the following paragraph much more impactful.
I can see how you use this technique on page 8, where the narrator is talking about First Lieutenant Jimmy Cross and his love for a girl named Martha. It suddenly ends and continues in the next paragraph with a short factual sentence. On occasion, he would yell at his men to spread out the column, to keep their eyes open, but then he would slip away into daydreams, just pretending, walking barefoot along the Jersey shore with Martha. Carrying nothing, he would feel himself rising, sun and waves and gentle winds, all love and lightness. What they carried varied by mission. How does this convey weight?
I wanted the preceding paragraph to stand out. The short, detached sentence after the long, detailed paragraph really makes the readers pay attention. It also serves to convey the heavy weight that weighed on the soldiers' hearts. They were so out of touch from love and familial compassion that they had to imagine themselves with girls from home who never gave a second thought to sending a letter from time to time.
I see. So this chapter is all about the items these soldiers choose to carry with them into the unexpected events that are war. When you decided to use this technique, were you thinking about how it created so much more emphasis on the items they're describing?
I was. I believe this technique helped to create much more emphasis and impact on the item they're describing, creating a main focus and attention on the special items.
Wow, Tim, you sure know your stuff.
Well, I did write it.
You sure did. Anyway, tell us of another syntactic technique you utilized.
Another way I use syntax to represent the weight of the items is with polysyndeton. This literary device uses the excessive use of conjunctions. You see this in almost every paragraph of the chapter. I use it to make my sentences longer, purposely adding weight to the sentence. When the reader reads an exaggerated sentence like this, it drags on, adding emphasis and importance to it, making it significant.
I noticed an example of polysyndeton being used in this chapter on page 7, where the narrator lists some of the weapons these soldiers carry. Care to read it for us, Tim?
In addition to the 3 standard weapons, the M60, M16, and M79, they carried whatever presented itself, or whatever seemed appropriate as a means of killing or staying alive. They carried catch-as, catch-can. At various times, in various situations, they carried M14s and CAR-15s and Swedish Ks and grease guns and captured AK-47s and Kycoms and RPGs and Semenov carbines and black market Uzis and .38 caliber Smith & Wesson handguns and 66mm LAOWs and shotguns and silencers and blackjacks and bayonets and C4 plastic explosives.
I did notice a lot of those conjunctions in this chapter, but you also incorporated asyndeton, the repeated leaving out of conjunctions, and polysyndeton in the same sentence to create even more emphasis on the extensive amount of things they carried on page 15. Care to elaborate?
Well, see, you're writing this book with the mindset that soldiers carry a lot of things. You need to switch it up a bit, so you create a contrast to the list of all the things the soldiers would throw away, purely because they know their supplies would be replenished when the resupply choppers came twice a week. This is why I mashed asyndeton and polysyndeton into the same sentence.
You also used asyndeton on page 13, when you detail even more items that the soldiers carried. They carried sterno, safety pins, trip flares, signal flares, spools of wire, razor blades, chewing tobacco, liberated joss sticks, and statuettes of the smiling Buddha, candles, grease pencils, the star and stripes, fingernail clippers, psyops, leaflets, bush hats, bolos, and much more.
I think the lack of conjunctions really accentuates the lengthy list of things they were required to carry. I really hit the nail on the head with this sentence, don't you think?
Yeah, so anyway, another syntactical device you used was anaphora, the repetition of a word or words at the beginning of two or more successive sentences. You chose the words they carried to be repeated a whopping 5 times in a row. What impact were you hoping to make here?
Well, Kelly, honestly, I was just fooling around, 20 pages into the book, and I thought it was getting a bit monotonous, what with all the lists of stuff, so I went for the exact opposite impact. Purposeful, monotonous recognition, ultimately creating even more of a jolt than I had imagined possible.
And you certainly did, Tim. Well, that's all the time we have for syntax today, Tim. Thank you for coming out to chat.
No problemo, Kelly. Let me know if Regis is ever sick again and we can discuss point of view next time.